Welcome to Rearranging Change, how you market to an ever-changing world. I'm your host, Steve McChesney. Hello and welcome to episode number 1. Now, my plan is to make these first 5 episodes to talk about each of the 5 different generations who are currently on the planet, and the training would be on how we market to them each individually. But before I start that, I was on Facebook this morning and I saw a post by a friend of mine named Lynn Corey. Now, she recopied it from somebody else, and I don't know who the other somebody was, but so I'm giving Lynn the credit here. But anyway, this was a post she put on perspective. Right now we're in the middle of this COVID-19 isolation and stay-at-home order. I know everybody is going through their own difficulties because of it, but I thought it might be good to share this post because it deals with perspective. So listen to this. Imagine you were born in 1900. On your 14th birthday, World War I starts, and it ends on your 18th birthday. 22 million people perished in that war. Later in the year, a Spanish flu epidemic hits the planet and runs until your 20th birthday. 50 million people die. And it's just in 2 years. Yes, 50 million. On your 29th birthday, the Great Depression begins. Unemployment hits 25%. The world GDP drops 27%. That runs until you're 33. Well, the country nearly collapses along with the world economy. When you turn 39, World War II starts. Now, you're not even over the hill yet. Don't try to catch your breath because on your 41st birthday, the United States is fully pulled into World War II. 75 million perish in that conflict. At 50, the Korean War starts. 5 million die. At 55, the Vietnam War starts and lasts 20 years. 4 million people perish in that conflict. On your 62nd birthday, you have the Cuban Missile Crisis. It's a tipping point in the Cold War. Life on our planet as we know it should have ended. Great leaders prevented that from happening. When you turn 75, the Vietnam War finally ends. Think of everyone on the planet that was born in 1900. How do you survive all of that? Perspective is an amazing art. It's refined as time goes on, and it's enlightening like you wouldn't believe. As you go through this difficult time, remind yourself and keep things in perspective. Okay, let's go on to today's lesson. We're going to talk about now we're going to do 5 different generations in 5 different weeks, but we're going to talk first about the traditional generation or the silent generation. Now, they were born between 1925 and 1945, and they're now in their 70s to their early 90s. They make up about 8% of the American population right now. There are several theories as to why they're called the silent generation, but I think the most obvious is the one here. When they were growing up, they were told to be seen and not heard. Well, they carried that through their entire lives, and they're still that way. They know a lot of things, but they're not going to freely share it unless you ask them. Ask them. They know a lot of stuff. Also, second, they grew up in the era of McCarthyism. They were afraid to share their beliefs or chance being called a communist. A big no-no at the time. Now, they became cautious about where they went and whom they were seen with. Better just to stay silent. The name itself, the silent generation, is attributed to a 1951 article that appeared in Time magazine. It was actually November 5th, 1951, and the article was called The Younger Generation, but it's where the term silent generation was first used. Now, as children, this generation grew up in conditions complicated by war and economic troubles. From 1929 to 1939, America suffered from the Great Depression. All social classes were affected. Many lost everything. This event alone would lead to them becoming frugal when it comes to spending. Now, don't expect a member of this generation to buy the latest smartphone when their flip phone works just fine. Again, we get down to the word they're called the traditional generation. They like things to stay the same. They don't want things to change very, very quickly. As far as the family structure, mom would stay at home and raise the kids while dad went to work. Chances are that dad worked for the same company his whole career. If they drank Coca-Cola, they didn't switch to Pepsi, or the other way around, to be fair to both companies. If you want them to change, you better have a really good reason for it. They believe in adhering to the rules. They trust their government. They're hard workers and they sacrifice for the greater good. When it comes to money, they're savers. They put it away, and when making a purchase, they prefer to pay cash. They have a strong belief in respecting their elders and are very polite in their communication. They do say yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, please, thank you. Those are all common words for this generation, and you need to use those words when you're marketing to them. We'll talk about that in just a second. Now, they were the first generation in American history to be smaller than the generation that preceded them. Now, some of the events that helped shape their lives, we had the golden age of radio. Swing dancing was very popular. 1929, we had the stock market crash. Huge, huge societal change because they lost everything. 1933, the New Deal happened. FDR was president. He promised to put America back to work again, and they believed him, and he stuck to his word. In 1935, the Monopoly board game was invented. 1935, Social Security system was put in place. Now, the Social Security system, remember, everybody lost it all. Social Security was promised that they would never lose everything again, that they're going to be taken care of in their golden years. Now, that system has always worked fine. It still works fine. However, they're starting to see some issues. And so they have to really think about how they're handling Social Security. 1938, the War of the Worlds radio broadcast. Now, this was a societal change as well, because when that show was broadcast, society thought it was real. They thought we were really being invaded by aliens from outer space. That made us look at the world a little bit differently, and also look at outer space a little bit differently and what could potentially happen. 1941, Pearl Harbor was attacked. Whew, big time, back at war. 1945, the atomic bomb was dropped on Japan. Now, this was also a societal change because we just dropped a weapon that can destroy the planet. You know, Stephen Hawking said that the thing about nuclear weapons is we've invented a weapon that can destroy the planet. The problem is we've not invented a way to escape it. That's some food for thought. In 1945, FDR was elected president for the 4th term. Remember, I said they were traditional. They wanted that president to stay the same. They didn't want to change it. And in 1945, the Cold War begins with the Soviet Union. Now, when you're marketing to this generation, remember to be polite and also respect their traditionalism. If you want them to take your product or your service and it's different from what they're used to, you need to give them a very good reason as to why they need to change. Otherwise, they're not going to change. You're better off trying to figure out a way that you can now incorporate into what they already do and already know. You want to say words like please and thank you. Now, one of the ways that I've seen this done well in copywriting, especially if you're doing a letter, a direct mail piece, if you're doing a letter that has to be turned over or it's going to be a second page, you know how at the bottom of those letters you see in parentheses the word over? Well, how about saying over, comma, please, and then put parentheses around that? The fact that you said the word please, you just included that generation, and they will recognize it, and they'll feel like you're building rapport with them. The Wall Street Journal has some great advertising and great copy that they do using that technique. Anyway, if you have any questions, if you have any ideas, any thoughts, please do me a favor and email me at steve@rearrangingchange.com. I would love to talk about what you want to talk about and share your views. And by the way, if you are an entrepreneur, a marketing, sales manager, if you'd like to be a guest on my show, just send me that email at the same address, steve@rearrangingchange.com, and we'll talk about it. So we're going to be right back with my pal, Ron Seggi, right after this. My friends, I'd like to offer you a free copy of my internationally best-selling book, Rearranging Change, How You Market to an Ever-Changing World. Just simply go to rearrangingchange.com. That's rearrangingchange.com. Rearrangingchange.com. I will pay for your book. You simply pay for the shipping and handling. Once again, a little gift from me. Rearranging Change, How You Market to an Ever-Changing World. Go to my website, rearrangingchange.com, and get your free copy today. And we're back. And listen, I want to introduce a very good friend of mine. He's going to be a regular on our show. Known him for quite a long time. You've all probably heard him before on the radio. He's got his show, Ron Seggi Today. He is known as the Tonight Show of radio. I like to say that because he was a big fan of Johnny Carson. but he really is. He's the Tonight Show of radio with the guests that he does interview. And we are so lucky to have him on our show. Welcome, my friend, Ron Seggi.
Hey, Steve, it's great to be here. Thank you for the invitation. This is really a very proud moment.
My goodness, Ron, thank you for agreeing to do this. I mean, you're just a champion. Listen, we're going to get right into it. I know, who do you have? I know you've got a vault of interviews that you have done over the years, and some will have current, some that are going to be from the past, but they're all evergreen as far as I'm concerned, especially when it comes to marketing and sales. And we're going to show the entertainment side of these things. So who do you got for us today?
Well, today I got a real character, if you will, John Ratzenberg. And of course, John has done a lot of things in the entertainment business, a lot of voiceover work, but his thing that everybody remembers him for is being old Cliffy the mailman on Cheers.
Oh, yeah, Cheers. Oh, John Ratzenberger, the mailman on Cheers, but he also hosted that show, Made in America.
Made in America. And he also, as I mentioned, did a lot of voiceover work. It's amazing because that character of Cliffy is very close to the invention, not the same character, but to an invention of a unique character like Barney Fife was on, Mayberry. I mean, it was just that
iconic.
Kind of
iconic, yeah, no doubt about it.
He invented that, and it just really lasts. I mean, he was a key factor in there. He's a great guy, down-to-earth fella, and does a lot for our country. He's a real patriot.
Great. Well, let's take a listen.
You want to be where everybody knows your name.
Live all across the USA and around the world on Ron Seggi Today. Our next guest has been with us in the past, and I'm delighted that he's here right now. He's in our studio. When it comes to television characters and when it comes to a recognizable face, this man is in the top 10. I got to tell you that he is quite a guy, and he's joining us to talk about a serious subject and a few projects that he's working on. Joining us right now is John Ratzenberger. Hey, John, how you doing?
Ron, it's great to be here.
We've talked a few times on the phone.
Yes, for long-distance interviews.
Yeah.
From time to time.
Well, welcome to Orlando. I know that there was a time in Orlando that you had a little bit of a motorcycle accident, so I hope that
I got mad at the highway, and so I decided to slam into it at 80 miles an hour.
But
the highway won, by the way.
Yeah, but you're here.
Yeah.
And that section of the highway they changed now.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, because they
have a plaque there?
Well, they said you damaged it so badly that they had to make an off-ramp.
It was driver error. It was my fault, and luckily I survived.
Well, at least you didn't pull off a Gary Busey. You were wearing a helmet.
Oh, definitely wearing a helmet.
Yeah, that's the way to do that. You know, I know that you get tired of talking about this, but your role, which to this very day is on television. I mean, this is like I Love Lucy on Cheers. Cliffy the mailman.
Oh, yeah. No, I don't get tired of talking to it at all. As a matter of fact, on my website, one of the first things you see is Cliffy.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
I mean, that was, you talk about ensembles on television. You think about the Lucy Show, you talk about the Carol Burnett Show, you talk about All in the Family, and you have to include Cheers. I mean,
my theory is that, because it holds up so well today, is because the writing was so good.
Yeah.
Because the writing, you never saw the joke coming. You never could predict what the joke was going to be, unlike a lot of shows today.
That's the Burroughs boys, huh?
Well, it's Jimmy Burroughs and Les and Glenn Charles, and all the writers. We had a lot of writers, but every single one of them grew up in an era where they read books.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't watch TV growing up.
Yeah.
They read books, so they understood character development, depth of characters, story arc. It came naturally to them because, once again, they had grown up reading.
Did you do that in front of a studio audience?
Yes, we did.
As a 3-camera shoot?
4.
Really? Was it really?
Mm-hmm.
It was a great show. And you know what? You can always tell a good show when it plays so many years after. I bought my first radio station the year that show went on the air, and here we are 3 decades later, and that show is still on and still good and still appealing to an entirely different demographic.
Well, interesting you should mention radio because the thing about Cheers is a little-known fact that I'll throw at you like Cliffy, is that if you turn down the picture, darken the picture, Cheers plays like a radio show.
Oh, okay.
So you don't even have to see the picture, and you'll still get the story and everything else.
That's an interesting... I've never heard anybody tell that to me, because they always say the radio is the theater of the mind, as they used to say in the old days.
If you turn the picture off, just listen to the soundtrack of Cheers. It's just like a radio show.
I'm going to do that, because I watch it in reruns all the time. I'm going to do that. I'm going to try that, because I've never heard of that before.
Yep.
That's pretty cool. The Travel Channel's Made in America. I loved that show, John, because... You know, so many times America gets the short change of what goes on in this country. People hear what's happening in Syria, they're manufacturing cars in Japan. You brought this to the forefront and said, this is what's happening in Knee Bend, Indiana.
Right. I just got tired of all the negative things coming out of, especially Hollywood, because we used to be a nation and a culture that rewarded success. Now we're a nation and culture that rewards failure. And we make fun of or demonize anyone that wants to be a success.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a turn that was made, I believe, somewhere in the 60s.
Yeah.
So my next book is actually going to be entitled, I'm Sorry I Ruined the World, Apologies for the Woodstock Generation.
Yeah.
Because we made that turn. And so I wanted to do Made in America because I wanted to honor the people that actually, to me, I avoid the term blue-collar worker. It's essential worker. Because the people that put the nuts and the bolts of our civilization together are essential. People like myself or a basketball player or singer, we're not essential.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice to have us around.
Yeah.
But if we didn't come to work one day, nobody'd really care.
Yeah, well, it's not going to stop the economy or anything.
Imagine
right?
if all the truck drivers pulled off the side of the road for a day.
Yeah.
We're done.
You bring up a good point. We were talking before we went on the air about the show I was watching on VH1 about the 60s. And you're right. It was almost like if you made it at that era, you were a materialistic, capitalistic, pig, if you will,
Right, and here we are now still dealing with a country that used to be called Communist China. Mm-hmm. The government's is no different than it used to be when Mao started.
Right.
It's still a communist country, but now, for some reason, we just call it China.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
And we forget that, Mao killed more people than Hitler did.
Sure.
10 times more people than Hitler did. But no one mentions that.
No, because now we have a stake in what they're doing. And there's even in the political arena today some unrest over, and I won't mention any names, but over the people who have legally made a good living, and now all of a sudden that legal good living turns against him because of the fact that he's worth $1 bazillion. And, if he's worth $1 bazillion, he apparently did it, illegally, and that's not the case.
No, it's but also, there are people who are very wealthy that would like to see you become very wealthy.
Yes.
They're just saying this is how I did it.
Yeah.
Basically, it's the Judeo-Christian ethic. You get up in the morning, put your hand to something useful, be responsible for yourself and your family. They're really simple rules. Yeah. And, I grew up following the American dream. My father was a truck driver and drove a gasoline tanker. My mother worked in a factory. I was a latchkey kid before the
term came.
Yeah, before it was popular. And I remember making bacon sandwiches when just my eyeballs could see just at the top of the frying pan. And now social services show up, but
yeah, right.
Nobody bothered back then, and I became very capable. But I followed the American dream, did okay for myself, and now for some reason they want to punish me for it.
Yeah,
by raising taxes. And I just don't get it. Why am I being punished for doing what I was supposed to do?
Yeah, you were told to do something. It's just like going to college. You were told to go to college, and then they turn around and they say, "Oh, you should have went to a trade school because we really have too many college-educated people."
Well, right now, that's the reason I'm in Florida, because the MOST program, which started here right in Orlando, it's a mobile outreach skills training. What we do is we train people in the skills to fill the jobs in manufacturing. Right now, there's 600,000 jobs available in manufacturing nationwide. But what happens, like when the veterans come home, they're they go to the VA or a community college, and they'll train them in a skill that might take 2 years. They'll get a certificate in a skill that's not available in their area. They might graduate after 2 years with a certificate in dog grooming, something that's just not applicable to the real world. So what we do is we'll go to the companies, big manufacturers, small manufacturers, say, what do you need? I'll say, well, we need 6 welders. We need 5 CNC machine operators. We'll pull our trucks up. We have 18-wheelers. We'll pull right up right next to the factory, and we'll vet the veterans as well as the company.
Sure.
But we'll find people that want those jobs, and we train them. We train them on the spot. 2-week course, they go in the factory. After another 4 weeks, they have a job. So we guarantee the jobs. We find the jobs. We guarantee the jobs. And so far we've put over 1,000 vets to work.
That's sensational.
Some of them homeless.
And I got to tell you that I really think that the 2-week span that you're talking about there is what counts. Because when you start telling somebody that we're going to have a training program that's going to take 8 months and they're already starving, that doesn't have much curb appeal, if you know what I mean, you know?
Well, also, the government cost, the cost to the taxpayers is $200,000 per head on those training programs. Ours is $6,900.
Let's go back to this great program, MOST, M-O-S-T. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you what that meant.
Mobile Outreach Skills Training.
Okay.
You go to the website, mostjobstraining.com.
When you go there, do you hit the M period, O period, or just go to MOST?
No, M-O-S-T.
M-O-S-T. Okay.
Mostjobstraining.com.
You say that there's 600 jobs out there in the United States.
600,000.
600,000 jobs
right
to be
now.
filled. Now, my question is, when they come out on the news with these figures of unemployment and, and all this other stuff, have they forgot about those 600,000 jobs?
Absolutely, they have.
Is that intentionally, John?
The misconception is the people in the government and the teachers unions, guidance counselors, they think we're two different countries. They want all their kids to go to college, and they forget that if we don't educate the plumbers, then when the brain surgeon goes to wash his hands before surgery and there's no hot water, well, that's the reason. The average age of skilled people who can handle tools and machines is 57 years old. 6 years, well, sometimes less, they're gone. They're retired.
Yeah.
And there's no one coming up after them, by the way, because we canceled vocational training in all our schools starting about 30 years ago.
Right.
So now children who graduate from high school are functionally, mechanically illiterate.
Sure.
So that's an endangered species. But I've talked to Congress, the Senate, I've talked to a lot of politicians, a lot of educators about this, and they look at you like you got lobsters coming out of your ears.
Yeah.
They didn't even know that this is a crisis. But now, I've been talking about this now for a good 6-8 years. Just now, it's starting to hit Washington and the New York Times and people like that, because in their own lives, they're realizing, wow, I can't find a bricklayer. Brother needs a welder we can't find it. And so now they're just starting to realize that we're heading for a crisis. So that's where we come in. We have a lot of vets coming back, Afghanistan and Iraq. We have the ability to train them for any one of those 600,000 jobs that are available.
And deservingly so. I mean, they have paid an enormous price to live in this country. You know, the guy down the street who's never even seen the inside of a tank, you know, he all of a sudden is complaining and moaning and, you know, trying to call his congressman to complain about the slightest little thing. Meanwhile, these people see what the cost of freedom is. But, you know, you bring up such a valid point when it comes to the technical end of it. And your analogy before about, you know, us in the entertainment business, if we didn't show up for work, in my case, it'd just be dead air and they'd fill it with somebody else who does this, you know. But the fact of the matter is that I like when I call somebody and the person that comes to my house and fixes the plumbing or does something technical is a young person. The reason I like it is because everybody, and I don't know when this...
Well, that's the future.
Yeah, I don't know when this happened, John, but everybody wants to be the boss. Everybody wants to sit behind the big desk.
That's the entitlement came out of Woodstock.
Yeah, that's right. And
we have to be concerned about their feelings.
Yes.
Not their achievements.
No.
Their feelings.
Yeah, and those people who are looked down upon. I mean, the guy that drives the truck that picks up the job Johnnies, you say, boy, how the heck did he get that job? I was watching the guy pick up the recyclables today, right? And I'm thinking to myself, this guy probably got up at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
He's jumping in and out of that truck. We're working like a mule. But yet somebody looking at him says, he's... and they're unemployed.
But we did that in popular culture. Hollywood did that.
Yeah.
Because every time you see a depiction of someone with a toolbox or someone who's handy, whether it's a movie, a TV show, they're always depicted as being less than the people who made the movie anyway. Yeah. They're always looked down upon. So why would a child growing up watching those depictions want to be that?
That's right.
When all they've seen in the popular culture is those people being made fun of.
Yeah, that's exactly right. What can we do as the general public? How do we hop on John's bandwagon with MOST?
Well, with MOST, it's really donations and it's private funding. The government gives us no money whatsoever.
Geez, what a surprise.
Yeah, what a surprise.
Gosh, you just-
But we guarantee jobs. We find the jobs and we guarantee the jobs. Once you're in our training program, you stick with it. You're guaranteed a job.
Now, is it all technical jobs?
No, we can reconfigure for just about anything.
Really?
Oh yeah, because we have these motorhomes and trailer trucks that pull up right on the space, the lot right next to the factory, whatever it is, and we computerize everything. So
Wow.
whatever the job is, you need a skill as a manufacturer. We can train you. I was using the welding machine today, by the way.
Were you really?
Computerized welding machine, and I have a background. I've done some welding, and it's exactly like you're welding.
No kidding. But do you have a position for an announcer in this gig?
As a matter of fact, I happen to know the guy to talk to.
Oh, really? I do anything. Believe me, floors, announcing. Hey, I got started in
You know
radio
what? If
early.
we ever get to the point of doing a documentary, we're going to need a documentary voice.
Boy, they wouldn't use you. It would be something.
Well, I
They can afford me.
might be fishing that day.
They may be fishing that day. You're doing Drop Dead Diva up in
in Atlanta, yeah.
How you like doing that?
Yeah, well, it's great. The nice folks, the cast, they're very friendly. Everybody's right on the money, and it's. I love the business that we're in because you show up on a set, and it really is a crack team. It's just because everybody knows what they're supposed to do, and I know Hollywood does get a bad rap because we got all this BS here, BS. Once you get through that, and you're at the level where you're working, it's just stunning.
Yeah.
To watch the ballet of the crews and the camera movement and the lenses and the actors playing their trade. It's a joy.
Well, the problem with that business is that when you get into it too young and you haven't paid your dues, whether it be in acting or in singing, you don't appreciate what it takes to make it, and then you kind of abuse it. And when you get it a little bit later on in life,
A little of that.
a little bit of reality, that's for sure. MOST is the name of the program. It's an organization that gives Americans, particularly veterans returning from war, the training and resources to enhance manufacturing jobs in America. John Ratzenberger, the great actor, is really taking a huge hand in making this thing work. And again, the website again, John, is?
MostJobsTraining.com.
Okay. Would you come back and join us again sometime, my friend?
Absolutely, sir.
John Ratzenberger has been our guest. What a great guy. Come back again, John, okay?
Thanks, Ron.
Okay. And we'll be right back with more with Ron Seggi today.
You wanna be where everybody knows your name.
Wow. What a great interview. What a great guy. Oh, my goodness. That whole idea of that MOST, that mobile outreach skills training, why hadn't somebody done that before?
Well, I think one of the reasons, and we talked about that off the air, was the fact that growing up as a baby boomer, as you are, I am, and as John certainly is that the big push in schools was to go to college, go to college. If you didn't go to college, you were never going to get ahead. Your parents, said, well, I've never had a son or a daughter, nobody in my family ever went to college. I never did go to college, go to college. Great concept. Unfortunately, they left a complete segment of the audience and of the demographic and of the population out, and that was vocational workers.
Well,
And-
he even mentioned in there the fact that even Hollywood, I mean, if they have a character that carries a lunchbox and goes to work as a construction worker, they're looked at as being less than. They're not, their status in life is lower than, say, the executive. And that's terrible. But hey, that's the way Hollywood can sometimes run it.
Well, it's funny you should mention that because you had referred to Johnny Carson earlier, and Johnny used to carry his lunch. He'd get out of his fancy white little Corvette and he'd have a little brown bag with him. And nobody said anything to him, but the comment was, geez, a big star like that, why does he carry his lunch? As if there was some kind of a demeaning factor there.
Well,
But-
I mean, in fact, let's face it, Ron. I mean, do you think he actually made that lunch that was in that bag?
No, I'm sure that his two maids did. He carried it. He did carry it.
Yeah.
And he ate it.
Yeah,
which was-
but back to your point, I mean, it does. People look at it like, wow, he's a big star and he's carrying a lunch bag. It's like saying, hey, you're a multimillionaire and you're driving an old beat up Chevy truck.
Right. But I think the point to really center on is that John and his organization that he's part of, they realize that their need is there for plumbers, craftsmen. And there's so many jobs that are out there in a vocational area that are needed. I mean, the vacancies that are available for people to fill are unbelievable. Plus the fact that it also serves a market of people that have these great skills. Not everybody can sit behind this big desk, okay, because that doesn't mean anything. You know, you can sit behind the big desk and not produce a thing. But if somebody has a trade that is, let's say, dictated to what to do from a big desk, that person is more valuable than I think sometimes the people behind the desk.
Sure. Well, I liked one of the things he said in the interview about, you know, if you're a surgeon in general and you go to wash your hands before surgery and there's no running water, well, if there's no plumber, you don't have the running water. And it's just an important, vital thing. And the fact that they can do it in a couple of weeks instead of a couple of months. Right. They take their vehicle and they park it right next to the business and they guarantee those people a job and they train them real quick. I just think it's brilliant. And just for everybody listening, if you want more information on that, that's mostjobstraining.com. And most is mobile outreach skills training. I just think it's a amazing and great interview. So thank you, Ron, my friend, and we'll see you again next week. Appreciate you.
Look forward to it, my friend. We'll be here for you.
And thank you, everybody, and hope you enjoyed today's episode. By the way, please feel free to drop me an email at steve@rearrangingchange.com and give me your thoughts and your views, and we'll see you next week. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time on Rearranging Change. Make sure to visit my website, stevemcchesney.com. Sign up for my newsletter. We'll be talking soon.